Welcome to Sports Save My Life. My name is Clayton Freck, and I'm the CEO and founder of Angel City Sports. We know the power of sport to change and, in some cases, save lives. We hear these compelling stories every day, and we created this show to share them with the world. Enjoy the show, and remember to like, follow, share, and comment. Today, I am really excited to meet, really for the first time, and interview Owen Bainbridge. He's dialing in from Hereford in the West Midlands in the United Kingdom, which is near the Welsh border. I connected to Owen surprisingly easily by just starting like a social media search, and actually found his wife, who had been tagging and posting about blind soccer or blind football, as they, I think, call it in the UK. Owen was born with congenital glaucoma. We'll learn more about that in a minute, and lost what he had of his sight around the age of 6. And, just a couple sport facts about Owen. I think his first international match was in 2010 when he was only 20 years old. So I think that's pretty cool. He's been at this quite a while. And impressively, he's got 70 caps or international appearances in matches. He's been to 5 European championships and won 3 bronze medals, been to 2 World Games, won a silver, and also won a silver at the World Grand Prix. And, really excited to hear from Owen. And part of the reason we wanted to have Owen on was, leading up to the Tokyo Games this summer, we wanted an athlete from each of the summer Paralympic sports, right, to help us understand the sport and the beauty of what Paralympic sport is. And so, Owen, you're going to kind of be our educator today. We're really honored to hear your story. So as our very first international guest on Sports Save My Life, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, first question. Could be easy, could be hard for you, but what comes to mind when I say the title of the show, Sports Save My Life?
The first thing that kind of comes to my mind is that I think it can, on any level of sport, it can be, people can start to play sport. It can get people out of some really, really bad places. It can, especially team sport, I think, can you regularly getting together with people, even at like a really grassroots sort of level. I think it can give someone a kind of direction and a support network.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does a lot, right? Describe yourself, Owen, in one sentence.
Oh, I'd like to think I'm quite hardworking. I think I'm a good team player.
Beautiful. All right. So the first section of the show, we go as far back as possible. We want to explore people's childhood and their disability, if it was a congenital or acquired in childhood. So talk to me about where you grew up. What was childhood like? What were your parents like? Like what was life like for a young Owen?
Yeah, so I'm originally from the northeast of England, so from a village called Cockfield, which is in County Durham. And like you said before, I was born with congenital glaucoma, so I just had a little bit of sight. How
much sight? Like when you say a little bit, what is that?
Not much. I think they tried to I could use glasses and stuff like that, but I couldn't read a lot. So from the age of 4, I was already kind of learning to use learning mobility training. So learning to use a white cane and learning Braille.
Could you see when you were younger? Can you even remember what you could see? But could you see sort of shapes and shadows, or like what was vision like for you back then?
So I could see color. So I'm kind of one thing I am very, very happy about is if you say a colour to me, I do know what that is. I can remember colours and stuff like that. And that's kind of very precious to me that I've got that, and I can still remember that even kind of at 31.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're learning as a young lad, right? 4 or 5 years old. You're learning how to navigate the world with the white cane, right?
Yeah.
What else are you having to learn?
So I went to mainstream school. Mainstream school is kind of, we have I don't know what it's like in the States, but we have mainstream school is you have the facilities so that we can learn, or blind people or visually impaired people can learn alongside kind of your sighted peers. So from the age of 4 right the way through till 16, I was actually just in a mainstream school, so just a kind of a normal everyday school. So I did a lot of the learning that I think any young lad would do. Used to be out and about. I used to get a lot of knocks, more than usual. I think I've given my parents a few really big frights over the years.
Like when you say knocks, what does that mean?
So banging my head.
Oh, really?
Walking into stuff. Yeah, because obviously, I mean, I put a lot of the way that I have turned out now, I put a lot of that onto my parents, because they allowed me to kind of to get on as a normal child, really. And I'm sure at times they were absolutely petrified when I was out playing and climbing trees and doing all your kind of normal stuff, but coming back with bangs on my head and bruises and things like that. And it allowed me to kind of learn and develop into kind of where I am now.
So we talk a lot on the show just because I love going into childhood, right? We talk a lot about the role of parents and some of those parenting decisions that we have to make. And now you're a parent, right? Yeah. And you probably better appreciate those, right? Those parenting decisions that your parents made. So they let you kind of, what did they like I grew up in the 70s and no parents knew where their kids were back then, right? You just opened the door and we wandered the neighborhoods and the fields and everything else. But like, is that kind of how you were raised, just to kind of hear the doors open, go figure things out? Or did you go out with a buddy or a brother or a sister, or like, what was it like?
I mean, so around kind of my sort of, I was being quite young, so we're still talking quite young here. I was always like around my own little area, around my home area. I kind of knew where I was going. I knew what was around. But obviously, when I was like kind of going around outside and playing, I would be out with my friends and all that sort of stuff. So I think actually as well, another thing to say about that is I had and still have, because even though I've moved to Hereford now, some of the friendships that I've got, even from kind of when I was that age, are still there, still really strong. So you think like I would be maybe guided by my friends and stuff like that, like holding onto their arm and stuff like that. And we're talking quite young kids, both in school and at home, that were kind of, I suppose, really responsible. Is that I never really came to any real harm. You know?
All right. So before I move on, give me one story where you like really freaked your parents out.
Right. So I tell this one quite a bit actually, and it is, you can laugh. We do get a few laughs with it. So I was about 11, and me and my pal Boris, there's an outdoor swimming pool near where I live, and it was a really hot kind of summer's afternoon in the school holidays, and we begged it to take us there. So we went there, my nana took us, and having a brilliant time. Weather was absolutely stunning, people everywhere, and there was a springboard there. So that's kind of diving board, but quite low, but it bounces. I got up on one side of it, and obviously it was really, really noisy, and I've turned over my shoulder and shouted, "Am I ready?" or "Can I go?" or something like that. And my mate misheard what I'd said and said yes, and I just dived, and instead of facing the pool, I was facing the side of the pool, so straight into the concrete off this diving board.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. So there has been some kind of, I think one of the hardest things was, obviously my nana was obviously there, but she was at the other end of the swimming pool, could probably see what was going to happen, but couldn't do anything about it. So, I mean, imagine the fear of that, you know what I mean? And I think it took about 2 or 3 years, but I have been back there and I have been off that diving board. So.
Oh, so you were traumatized.
No, I wasn't actually. I was okay, but I think it was just a bit of a coincidence why we hadn't sort of been back. But I mean, I was ambulanced out of there, but luckily, I literally came away with scrapes. Do you know what I mean? So I was quite lucky.
Yeah, you could have been paralyzed.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, if I'd landed directly on my head and stuff, it could have been really, really bad. But these things do happen. And I think before I had kids, I would still say the same thing to you that I have now. But I think I hold my parents and stuff in even more sort of awe now, really, for letting me get on in the way that they did, because I've got kids now and I get worried about them, and they're both perfectly sighted. They've got all their sight, everything. So. And I worry about them. So God knows what it was like.
I hear you. So when you think about, those, early childhood, even like going through teenage years, what were your challenges? And were they even related to your disability at all, or were they just sort of normal kid challenges?
Yeah, I think they were. I think, so I would say as a blind person, we learn things in a slightly different way. So if you went to an area, moved to a different area, and you wanted to know where the local shop was, you would find where it was. You would find it. It might, if it's quite a distance or whatever, something that would be very, very simple for a fully sighted person takes us a lot longer. Life's a little bit slower, if you know what I mean. It takes us a little bit longer to learn things. But I think frustrations wise, the biggest ones for me was when I was younger, sort of before teenage years. So I went blind when I was about 6. So coming out of hospital, obviously I wanted to do the same things that I'd done before. So play football, do stuff like that. And we didn't know about footballs that rattled in them days at that point. We did like a couple of years later or whatever. But at that time I was trying to do the same things that I'd done before, but couldn't. So I had to learn to adapt and do things in a slightly different way. So I think they're probably the biggest challenges. Little things like I wouldn't be able to see what was on the telly anymore.
Right.
Little things like that, just really kind of, because you're just a child, aren't you? So little things to us now are quite big when you're young.
So did that cause you any pain or frustration? Like what was and how did you work through that?
I mean, I stick by it. I think kids are very, very adaptable. And I think especially at the moment when we look at what's been going on with all this coronavirus and stuff, I think to see how kids have adapted and got on with it, I think it kind of strengthens what I think, really. And I think kids are really adaptable. But obviously at the time it's not very nice. I've gone in. So I'll give you the story of when I actually went blind, if that's of any kind of use to you. Yeah. So it was a kind of normal afternoon. I was in infant school, and I think it was the afternoon, and we were all sitting down on the floor, and I started feeling like, I think my eye was sort of itching a little bit and maybe felt like it had sand or something in it. And I started to rub it and stuff. And then my sight started. So this is all happening quite quickly in the same afternoon. My sight started blurring and stuff like that. So the school obviously sent me home. That's probably one of the worst nights of my life. In the morning, we got on a train, obviously hardly had any sleep. I was in quite severe pain. We got on a train and went down to Moorfields Eye Hospital in London. I think within 2 weeks, I'd come home and obviously was totally blind. They'd done everything that they could and they couldn't save me sight. So from being in school in that afternoon with some sight, 2 weeks later, I've got none. So it's a bit of a life changer, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine these, I have an 8, my youngest is 8, right? And not that much older than you are. And I really can't imagine.
I mean, I'm not gonna pretend. I know it was a horrible night before we went to the hospital, but I'm not going to pretend that I can remember the pain and stuff, because I can't. Because I think as humans, we don't really remember pain. We remember that something hurt, but we don't remember the exact pain, and I think that's quite lucky, really. But
right. I mean, women forget how painful childbirth is,
exactly.
Right? And they have another kid.
Exactly.
They remind us occasionally, right? But
yeah, they do.
So did your parents understand that you had, the glaucoma at birth, or did they learn it after you were losing your sight?
So, I mean, I think literally a couple of days after I was born, I was in the operating theatre. So they knew very, very early that there was something wrong with my eyes. So that was happening sort of very, very quickly. And again, I imagine like where it was hard for me, but I didn't really know what was happening, or definitely didn't know what was happening. So what it must have been like for them must have been awful. And I think kind of hats off for everything that they've done.
Yeah. Yeah. My eldest was born an amputee. And so I can empathize with your parents. We were in that hospital and just going, whoa, right? Like this was not what we were expecting. But you keep just moving forward, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to take a quick break to show you how you can get involved as a volunteer with Angel City Sports.
Are you interested in supporting Angel City Sports? We're seeking volunteers to help organize clinics and events, as well as support our athlete outreach efforts, marketing and media, and even fundraising and development. All skill sets and backgrounds are welcome in support of our mission to provide free adaptive sport opportunities for children, adults, and veterans with physical disabilities or visual impairments. For our younger athletes, we welcome you to join the Angel City Youth Leadership Council. Middle and high school age students are eligible to join the Youth Leadership Council, where you will learn about the disabled community by working side by side with our athletes and acquire important skills such as teamwork, leadership, philanthropy, and event management. To sign up for our volunteer newsletter and stay up to date on all upcoming opportunities, visit angelcitysports.org.
You're in school and you're out playing with your buddies. Did your schools being mainstream, so that means you're probably not with a big cohort of other blind kids. So are you just kind of figuring sport out with your buddies at school? Is the school accommodating you right from a kind of a sport and kind of other activity standpoint?
Yeah, so there was some of the blind people there, but obviously not all in my year. This is where I can kind of lead into my football story. So my dad was always played football, so every Saturday I'd be at football with him. He played at a pretty decent level. I've always loved football, and I've always kind of played football with my friends and with my family and stuff like that. But it's always just been on a sort of that's all it was. You're just having a kick around sort of thing. So my dream was always to sort of be part of a team and play football properly. Now, when I was 18 or 19, I was studying at a blind college in Worcester, and I got the opportunity to go and train at Worcester University with a Worcester blind team. So that was kind of my introduction to blind football, and that was sort of the first part of sort of my dream coming true then, because I was able to play with footballers that were the same as me. So if they were better than me, they were better than me. If I was better than them, I'm better than them. and it was sort of playing football on an even keel, and I was part of a team, and that was kind of, I would like to have been part of a football team since I was sort of 6 years old. I mean, I don't know what it's like in America, but over here, like kids are playing football in teams and stuff like that from 6, 7, 8 years old. So I never did that until I was 18.
Right.
So that was absolutely fantastic for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So just a quick aside for the American audience, which is football and soccer are interchangeable in this conversation. We are not talking about blind American football. We are talking
I'm not.
the global sport of football, which we, for some reason, call soccer here in the U.S. So what's really kind of cool about your journey is you're mainstream. You're doing stuff with your buddies and at school, right? There's sort of you're active, but you don't find the sport until you go to university. Right?
No, so I was at so it was like a sixth form college. So that was in Worcester, and Worcester University was nearby, and there was a blind football team there. And one of my friends at the college was friends with someone there, and they were looking for players and said, "Do you know any players who would be interested in coming?" And they said, "Yeah, I think I might know one." Came straight to me, and I think either that week or a week later I was there in training, and then a few weeks later got my first opportunity to play in the league. So that was kind of the start of it.
The dream was realized, and what we like to say is like we got to take the luck out of finding, adaptive and Paralympic sport. We got to take that chance out of it. And so, what a blessing for you, right? That you went to the right school with the right buddy who knew what was going on.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's changing. That's massively changing over here now. So we're getting blind football players kind of very young now, and they're getting their opportunity, and they're starting their football career much younger now, which is absolutely fantastic. But that's progress.
It is progress, and I think what I get excited about is the progress that the UK has made since the London Games in 2012, right? That really, I think, at least from my understanding, has taken Paralympic sport to another level. And unfortunately for us in the United States, we probably have to wait for 2028, right, to get that same pop. But it shows that it's possible, right? That we can grow this thing.
Yeah, I mean, Paralympic sport and is becoming so big now. It's which is fantastic because there's some great athletes.
Yeah. Well, and our athlete stories are the best, right? Our stories rock, which is why we do this show, because we want to make sure that people get to know the athletes behind the picture you might see on the TV or on the internet. Because it's about the journey is, the journey, there's commonality in the journey, but the journeys are all really special and unique. So just as before we start talking about the elite level of sport and kind of maybe give us like a Tokyo kind of primer for what to expect, right? In Tokyo, I'd love you to just give our listeners and our audience like a little bit of a blind football, blind soccer, right, kind of tutorial. Like what is the sport? How is it sort of laid out? Kind of what about, what's the, equipment, just kind of some basics about the sport. Cause I've seen it. I saw it in Rio. I saw the gold medal match in Rio and it was incredible. Like I am so hooked. I just think it's an amazing game, but give everyone just a sense of what the sport is.
Yeah. So it's 5-a-side. So we have sighted goalkeepers, fully sighted goalkeepers, and then 4 blind outfield players. When you go to competition, you can take 10 players. So generally you'll take 2 goalkeepers and 8 blind players. It is roll on, roll off subs. So I think you can have up to 6 substitutions. So if I'm playing in the first half, I can come off, I can still come back on in the first half, come on in the second half. It's roll on, roll off. We have 2 20-minute halves, but it's stop clocked. So it usually ends up being about a 90-minute game anyway. So behind the opposition's goal, we have a coach who can talk in his third of the pitch to call players in to shoot.
He is sighted as well, right?
Yeah.
And so the goalie, your goalie and your coach that's on the other end of the field, right? They kind of coach together and give instruction to the players on the pitch.
Exactly. So our goalkeeper can talk to his players in his third of the pitch. On the halfway line, we've got we have a head coach. Okay. So he can. It's usually the head coach. He can talk to his players in the third of the pitch. So we've got coaches that can speak to you in all thirds. The pitch is usually about 20 meters by 40 meters.
Okay.
And we use a ball that has it has like ball bearings in it. If we've got 2 players, when they're a couple of meters away from each other, so if I'm going to tackle somebody who has the ball, I have to say the word voy. So that's I go in Spanish, and that's used worldwide. If I don't say that and just go and tackle him, then it's a free kick straight away. 5 if you give away 5 free kicks in a half, it goes to penalty. It goes to a penalty then. So the other team will get a penalty from 8 meters. Any foul inside the box will be a 6-meter penalty. So 8-meter penalties can be very, very important because some teams have got some really, really good 8-meter penalty takers. So that can be a kind of big way for people to win games, really.
Yeah, got it. So you got to be really careful to not be penalized in the wrong spot, I guess I should say.
Yeah, but anywhere on the pitch, if you give a free kick away anywhere on the pitch, I think it's for a team foul. So I won't go into it too deep.
Got it. Okay. So certain types of fouls. Yep.
Yeah, and I mean that can accumulate and that gives sort of 8-meter penalties, which can obviously change games. If you've got a good player that can take 8-meter penalties, it's a good thing.
And Owen, the side of the pitch, at least in Rio, had walls. Is that how it always is?
Yeah. So we over here in this country we call them the boards. Now the boards are very, very important. So I don't know if you noticed, the ends of them are still open, so the ball can still go out for a corner. But down each side of the pitch we have these boards. Now they're fantastic for kind of us to locate ourselves. So that we know kind of where we are on the pitch. And that's like, I've seen the players, like they kind of run along the side, they're holding the board so they know they're going the right, kind of heading the right direction. Are you also able to sort of kind of echolocate just with the noise? Does that help at all? Exactly. So so when new blind players come into the sport, that's probably one of the first things they get taught is to use that echolocation and to orientate themselves around a football pitch. And we use that echolocation all the time. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to share a story. So for the gold medal match, I can't remember who Brazil played in Rio. I'm sure you know.
I can't remember who it was now. Was it France? Could have been France.
I honestly don't remember, but it was a pretty big, arena. I don't know, 10,000 people, maybe more. A little hard to know. And it was mostly Brazilians, right? And we sort of slink in and to grab a seat. There weren't a lot of seats. It was pretty much sold out. And to see this beautiful game being played down below, and Brazil has some real stars, right? So they were really, really amazing soccer
players
in their own right. And this is something that I think for our audience to understand is super, super cool, is the audience has to be quiet.
Yeah.
Or you can't play the game. And so here is, I don't know, 8,000 to 10,000 Brazilians who I'm sure want to scream for their team,
Yeah.
then they have to be quiet.
Yeah. unless someone scores, then you can do what you want.
Yeah. Once the ball's right, once there's like a out of bounds or something, right? But then you have to sort of be quiet once the game gets started, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, go ahead.
And there's actually people usually within the stadiums who are kind of going around telling people shh, shh, shh. Because obviously people do get excited, which you do at a football game.
So one of the things that I observed that was sort of it's an interesting part of the game, right? Which is there are moments where the ball either stops moving completely or spins in a way for some reason that doesn't make noise, right? Yeah. So the ball, it's live, it's on the pitch, but it goes sort of silent. What's the player's strategy? Like, what do you do at that moment? Because you think you're near the ball, but you don't really know, right?
It usually causes some pretty, I can say this stuff because I am blind, I think, but it usually causes some pretty amusing scenes, really, especially if there's two of you trying to kind of get the same ball and it goes dead. If it goes too long, the referee will come over and he can do what's called a drop ball. So he'll pick up the ball and he might just drop it in front of you, or he might throw it against the boards, and then two players, one from each side, will go and contest the ball then.
But yeah, I saw a bunch of scenes where the players cannot figure out where the ball is, and
it's like dancing, isn't it?
It's this sort of a funny dance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is great. And then the other piece of it, I don't think you mentioned, is you could be partially sighted and play this game, but you have to wear blindfolds, right?
Yeah. So I'm not sure how much sight you're actually allowed, to be honest. So our football is called B1. It's B1. So that's classifications. So you'll have B1 is totally blind, or maybe have some light perception and stuff like that. B2, B3, B4 obviously is sight's getting a bit better and a bit better and a bit better.
Okay.
Our football is predominantly B1. Whether you've got a tiny bit of sight or literally, so I haven't got any sight at all. You could put the light on in here and I wouldn't know it was on. I still have to they put a patch over your eye, then they put gauze over the top of that, and the tape has to come down to here, at least here. And then we wear a mask over the top of that as well to stop any sort of cheating.
So it's really hard to cheat if anyone wanted to cheat on this one.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's international sport, and it's, like I'm a contracted footballer, and a lot of people around the world are contracted and stuff, and it's kind of, you need everyone to be doing it right, because that could change things in places. Like people could lose contracts and stuff over stuff like that, and to be honest, it's the thought of people cheating is just awful, because you could have a totally blind player and you saw them, you saw Brazil, you saw how good some of their lads are. And yet someone who had that little bit of sight,
mm-hmm.
who maybe isn't even as good a footballer, could go and score a goal and could go and change their futures.
Yeah. It definitely, like, to think of any sort of, cheating at the Paralympics is sort of, it's a little shameful to even think of it, because the movement is right. It's the Paralympics are a system of fairness, right? Yes. For athletes. And to think that could be manipulated is sort of tragic. One more question just about the game, because I think it's just such a fascinating game. What is it? How do you overcome fear? And maybe you never had this, so maybe your answer is super easy, but like to be running full speed towards a ball that's right, making a little rattle, not really knowing if someone else is running at that same ball from a different direction, right? Like because I noticed some players are comfortable running pretty close to full speed and others didn't seem to go at full speed. The ones that were going full speed sort of terrified me, but what is that right? What is the feeling like, and how do you overcome any whatever fear or anxiety around that? Because I just thought that was a cool part of the game.
I think it's one of them things. Obviously, that is a massive barrier to overcome, especially for sort of new players coming into the game. It's not something that I personally have struggled with. Probably again because I've been blind for so long.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of them things. I think in any sport, I think there's an injury risk. And I think if you choose to play that sport, you you are sort of getting over that. You want to play the sport, and injuries kind of sort of comes with that. And I think it's a confidence thing as well. So I mean, we train just about every day, you know what I mean? And it's stuff that you're doing all the time. I mean, I had a tooth knocked out. It was off the ball incident actually. So accidents happen all the time. I had a tooth knocked out in 2016. It was my fault, to be fair. But do you know what I mean? These things happen. I mean, I've had a few injuries over my career. I've had a torn meniscus in my knee in 2012. Then in 2016, I had another knee operation on the same knee. And then in 2017, I ruptured my cruciate ligament in the other knee. And then I had an operation on that left knee again. So do you know what I mean? There is injuries and a lot of head clashes. But there's a lot of checks there now, Clayton. So there's concussion checks. We have physios. All that sort of stuff happens. All that stuff goes on.
Let's take a quick break to learn more about the equipment loaner program at Angel City Sports.
Part of our mission at Angel City Sports is to eliminate all barriers to participation in adaptive sports. Providing free adaptive sports equipment is a major component to this objective. Each individual piece of equipment can cost more than $3,000. Can you imagine if running shoes cost that much? So we're building an inventory of adaptive sports equipment to support our clinics, competitions, partner programs, and to loan out to emerging local athletes. Currently, we have racing wheelchairs, throwing chairs, and sport wheelchairs, perfect for tennis and basketball. If you or an athlete you know need a piece of adaptive sports equipment, visit the Equipment Opportunities page at angelcitysports.org. If you are interested in donating equipment or supporting the Equipment Loaner program, email us at info@angelcitysports.org.
All right, cool. So I want to talk a little bit about, and this kind of leads into the Tokyo conversation, but your sort of journey in, on the Paralympic level, right? So in 2012, right, in London Paralympic Games, right?
Yeah.
Your team's given an automatic spot.
Yeah.
As I understand it, but you were injured, so you weren't able to compete that year.
Yeah, so I wasn't up for selection. So I did the cartilage in my knee in February of that year. So I got operated on and stuff. So right up until the lads went away for the holding camp before the Paralympics, we were sort of training with them. And it was awful because I think London 2012, that would have been a kind of experience to, not that you don't forget any of them. I've had some fantastic experiences and hopefully I've got a lot of fantastic experiences to come, but that would have been unbelievable playing at home in the Paralympics. It's a little bit of I don't know. I don't really think there's words to describe what the feeling would have been like sort of walking out in front of that crowd there. So, yeah, but it's one of them things, these things happen. And especially in sport, these things happen and you just have to get over it and I think like I was in the European Championships the year after, so I think you kind of have to find a way to get these things just do happen in sport.
Right. And then your team did not make the Rio games, right?
No,
And you
no.
also did not make the Tokyo games. And talk to me about that, because you were close, right? Like that's got to be kind of devastating.
Yeah. So we were in the semi-final. So we'll go 2015 first. So we'd had a good European Championships. That was at home. That was actually in Hereford here. We got through to the semi-finals against Russia. It was 0-0 at full time, so we went to penalties. And I actually took the first penalty, and mine was saved. So I'm kind of part of the reason why we didn't go. And then exactly the same thing happened in 2019 for Tokyo. But that was against Spain in the semi-final. We went 0-0.
So no tied at the end of the game. You go to penalty kicks.
Go to penalty kicks, yeah. I took the first one then as well, and I had that saved as well.
Oh.
So yeah. So it's again, it's one of them things, and it's absolutely horrendous, but sometimes you've just got to look on it as it is. It's sport, so you've got to look at improve. I think I better learn how to take better penalties, really. And sort of, and you've got to dust yourself off, and come back. Or what do you do? You know,
right?
Some people, everyone thinks and does things in different ways, and everyone has a right to do that. So pretty soon after these things had happened, I was back training again and stuff, because that's the way I get over it.
Yeah.
And you go again.
Right. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I think that's my way.
Yeah, get back on.
Everyone's different.
Get back on the pitch. Keep playing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I like that. So when you think about, because this show will air at some point before the Tokyo Games, and with the intent, right, of having all summer Paralympic sports having at least one show, and some sports will probably have a couple shows that will have launched, so people can, start to understand these sports, or maybe get to know some of these athletes. Talk to me about what you're going to be paying attention to in Tokyo. Who are the teams to watch? Are there any players that you really admire? What's your sort of, perspective and take on Tokyo? What to look for?
There's well, obviously I think you know who one of them will be. Brazil, Argentina, a very good side. They've got a really good they've got a good striker, a lad called Maxi, and they've got a good centre half. I think they call him, I don't know what his real name is. They call him Goggy. He plays centre half, and he's a very good player as well. Then you've got I think Spain's obviously going as well. That's from Europe, and I think who else got through? Do you know what? You've caught me out.
It's okay. So.
But yeah, I mean, your top teams, you always want to watch them games because they're always going to be good football. And there's some great players out there. But I think it's good to see sort of teams. There's going to be teams from Africa there as well. China will be there. They always have a good team as well. I mean, the Paralympics is 8 teams. A World Cup's usually 16 teams, and a European's usually around 10 teams. So the Paralympics, they're kind of trying to pull. It's very hard to qualify for the Paralympics. So you would always expect a kind of really good spectacle there.
Yeah, and there's such limited spots, right? So
exactly, yeah.
Not everybody's going to make it. I'm. Go ahead.
The 2 lads who play for Brazil, they've got the number 9 and the number 7. So they've got Jafinho and they've got Ricardo Alves. You'll have seen them 2 playing in that final in Rio. and they're both fantastic players. So you're always kind of watching these players and seeing what they're doing and stuff. It's a different matter when you're playing against them because you're trying to beat them. But so.
I love it. Well, I love your love for the game too. I can hear it in your voice.
I think you can respect other teams and players when you love the game so much. But like I say, it's a kind of different matter when you're playing against, because you're trying to work out a strategy to beat them.
Right. I love it. Give me a little bit of insight into this last year, right? So we're recording the show in March, so we've all been in some form of lockdown, quarantine, kind of pandemic, right, situation for many of us about a year. How has that affected you and your team and your ability to stay, trained and sharp and, anything there that's interesting?
So obviously we've had, I think 3 lockdowns we've had now. We have, we've had in and out of football, really. So we have been back in and trained and all that sort of stuff, which has been really positive and really good when we've been able to. But there has been quite a bit of time, obviously, at home. But I've managed to stay sort of fit. I've managed to. I've still been training flat out, really, keeping myself. So we'll be back on the pitch again really soon. So we have been in, and it's been fantastic when we've been into training. But it's just been a little bit on and off. So in the off times when you can't go into training because there's a proper full sort of national lockdown or whatever, it's just been kind of, I've just had my mindset on really just kind of keeping fit, staying strong. I've still been able to get out with the ball and do bits and pieces to try and kind of keep myself sharp on the ball. We're doing a lot of running and a lot of strength work and stuff like that. So just to be ready to come back.
Yeah. Are there any tournaments that are coming up for you?
Yeah. So as far as this year is concerned, hopefully be back playing domestic football again soon, and hopefully some internationals this year. I'm not sure. It's kind of all on what sort of happens really within the country as to what happens with football. But hopefully European Championships next year, and then we're hosting the World Cup in 2023. So that's obviously going to be a massive one, and hopefully qualify for Paris 2024. So all sort of some big.
I'd love to see you there at Paris 2024. So make that happen, please.
We'll do our best. I mean, to be honest, the World Cup over here, I haven't been to a World Cup yet. And to be in a World Cup at home would be absolutely fantastic. So that one first. But with Europeans before that, I'm not sure where that's going to be yet. But that'll be 2022. So you got that to think about first. You take one step at a time. And then, Paris 2024 will be unbelievable.
Love it. All right, cool. So I'm going to shift into what I call the soul searching part of the show, and we'll be pretty laser. But I'd love to know, before we get started with this, like, how did you meet your wife? And talk to me a little bit just about her passion around accessibility, making the world a more inclusive place.
So I met her when I was down here playing football. Ended up moving down, obviously, and getting married and stuff. And
how'd you meet her? At a bar?
Yeah, I think so.
I met my wife at the airport, so I love these stories.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's a good one. And she loves football. So any sort of football.
So she was hooked when she met you then? She heard you were a footballer and you and that helped seal the deal?
I probably did mention it. But no, yeah, she's very passionate about kind of trying to on the blind football. So if we go the blind football sort of side of it first, she's really, really passionate about getting it out there. But and she gets some really, really good stuff out there on her with her Twitter stuff with the blind football world. And she kind of finds stuff from around the world that maybe wouldn't always go out, maybe wouldn't always be publicized. And it's grown, and she's doing really, really well with it. She's worked at the Blind College in Hereford, and she's worked for blind veterans, which is national. So she's got a very good background in all that sort of stuff, and the accessibility stuff that she's doing is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's quite enlightening.
Beautiful. Love it. So yeah, we'll be sure to include in the show notes, information about how to follow, her accounts, and, people are interested in just following the sport, right? She's a great resource. All right. So what is something that I don't know about you?
We always used to keep horses.
Oh, like growing up?
Yeah, well, my dad's still got one now. So I've always absolutely loved horses. Always been around them. Rarely rode one with a saddle.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very, very keen on that.
That's really interesting. And you obviously have ridden without sight. Do you go with somebody else, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I would either
you just trust the horse knows where the horse is going.
Yeah, make sure we're just in the little field at home, or get led about. Or I have done it where I've just ridden along, and I think we did it once somewhere where you just ride along on very good sort of riding school horses, but that was somewhere different. But at home, yeah, I just used to climb up on the wall outside the house, and we got like a little very small field in front of the house, and as a little kid I'd be just climb up on the wall and jump on the horse's back.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so he always used to have to make sure they were good, broken in horses and that.
Oh my gosh, that's such a great visual. I love that. All right, what would you say your disability has taught you?
I think resilience, because in all honesty, a lot of the stuff that I've had the opportunities to do, I probably wouldn't have had if I hadn't been visually impaired. I think definitely resilience, because sometimes if you want to do something, you may have to work that a little bit harder to get it. And yeah, I think some of the opportunities that I've had chance to take part in have been fantastic, and definitely some of them I would not have been able to do.
Yep. What accomplishments are you most proud of so far in life?
I think I try and be the best dad that I can, and I try not to let the fact that I can't see stop me from doing stuff with the kids, and I think in itself that's quite a big accomplishment, because there's when you're out and about with your kids and stuff, and you're out on roads and holding their hands and doing stuff with them and taking them places. I don't think of it as an accomplishment, but I suppose it's something that I am proud of.
Mm-hmm.
I want my kids to kind of have a good upbringing with a dad who can do all the things sort of that they want to do with them.
Yeah, I love that.
And then obviously my football stuff to play for England is an absolute honour, and it's it's always been a dream. I think it's a lot of kids' dreams to play for their country, and I've had the privilege to be able to do that. So yeah, I think that's a big accomplishment as well.
So you remember having that dream as a little kid?
Yeah, I think a lot of kids dream of themselves as playing for their country, and then obviously it happened, and I'll never kind of forget I always get the same feeling when I go out to play for England. It's absolutely unbelievable. But the first one, when you got the shirt on, you're like, yeah, I've actually got an England shirt on here. I'm going out to play for my country. And the feelings, just, there's nothing that, like I say, apart from my kids and stuff, and family, there's nothing really compares to that when you love the game so much.
Yeah. And you said it earlier, but that opportunity to put that jersey on, right? If you had sight, right? What are the odds that you would have had a similar opportunity, right?
I wouldn't like to put a number on it, Clayton.
I mean, it's a great story though, right? It's like, things happen to us in life, and where can you go with it? It's pretty beautiful.
You have to see the good that comes from things. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Bad things do happen, but if good things can come of it, I mean, in all honesty, I probably wouldn't have moved to Hereford. I probably wouldn't have met my wife if I hadn't been blind.
Right.
So life sort of leads us on these paths. And I'm very happy.
I love that. All right. So this one is tough for some. I think you're going to knock this out of the park, as we say in the US, as a baseball reference. But what do you think your purpose is?
Oh, purpose in life.
Purpose in life.
Oh, well, it might sound a little bit boring, but for me, it's kind of, I want to be able to support my family in the best way that I possibly can, and that if I can do that, I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
I think obviously I want to achieve big things in football. I want a good career, but I think first and foremost, I want to create a very, very good life for my family.
Yeah. I love it.
I don't think there's any better feeling than kind of sort of being there for people.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know about you, but I don't feel like I appreciated the role of, a parent, the importance of that, the gravity of it, the opportunity, until it hit me, right?
You would have got a different answer if you'd asked me this sort of a few years ago, before I had a family and all that. You would have got a different answer. But again, that's like what we talked about at the very start. Times change and importances change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. All right. So before I wrap up, I'm just going to give you the last word. What words of, motivation, inspiration, wisdom, you want to sort of share with our audience?
I think if you've got a dream, I think go for it, because it can happen. It really can. And never, I think people, and I think myself included, have been guilty of this. I think probably everyone has, is sort of underestimating yourself. You can underestimate yourself so much that you end up not doing the thing that you really, really want to do. So I think it's just having the confidence and the belief in yourself to go for it.
So that was Owen Bainbridge. One of the things that I really love about Owen is the guy has been fighting through injuries and actually missed the Paralympic Games in his own hometown in London. He's definitely on a mission. Next up is Laura Goodkind. Her near-death experiences, homelessness, and making the Rio team, and now going to Tokyo. You won't want to miss her episode.